Matt Sluka, the quarterback at UNLV, has tapped out. He put out a statement. Let's hear from Matt Sluka. I have decided to utilize my redshirt year and will not be playing in any additional games this season. I committed to UNLV based on certain representations that were made to me, which were not upheld after I enrolled. Despite discussions, it became clear that these commitments would not be fulfilled in the future. I wish my teammates the best of luck this season and hope for the continued success of the program. So Matt Sluka is a grad transfer. UNLV's off to a 3-0 start. First time UNLV's been any good that I can ever remember, maybe since the days of Suge Knight. I don't know if they were, Suge Knight played there.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, Suge Knight played at UNLV.
Yeah.
Steve knew that. But they're 3-0. I think they're getting some votes in the coaches poll, maybe ranking them 23 in the country. So they got this grad transfer who's playing very well. And he says, hey, man, they're not giving me the money they promised me, and so I'm out of here. Pete Thamel reached out to him, I believe him, and said, got some further elaboration. Former UNLV quarterback Matthew Sluka's NIL representation, Marcus Cromartie of Equity Sports, told ESPN that Sluka was verbally promised a minimum of $100,000 from UNLV assistant coach for transferring there. None of that money was paid per Cromartie. Once Sluka enrolled there was no effort by UNLV's collective to formalize a contract at that amount. Months after Sluka enrolled and Cromartie made multiple efforts with the staff and school to address the issue, he said the school and collective came back with a contract of $3,000 per month for the next 4 months. That's $88,000 less than what Cromartie said UNLV verbally promised up front. The only money Sluka has received from UNLV per Cromartie is a $3,000 relocation stipend for his move. Cromartie said there was never an ask for more money after UNLV's hot start, only the initial amount he was promised up front, blah, blah, blah. Man, this sounds a bit more complicated than the official story. Matthew Sluka I'd never heard of, and until this year or until they got off to this hot start. And to me, with an agent involved, this just sounds like a renegotiation that went poorly. And Sluka's like, I'm out. I can redshirt, and now I can sell myself to another team next year. Steve, your thoughts?
All right. First of all, Jason, be honest. You hadn't heard of him till last night when we tweeted you all this. It's UNLV football, who, by the way, was actually pretty good last year. They were so good that USC poached their quarterback, Jade Maeva, who's now the backup and I guess the future quarterback of Lincoln Riley. But I find it ironic. All I know is this: Jerry Tarkanian, he wouldn't have had this problem. He would have found a way to keep his player. That's all I know. He ended up taking a lot of transfers in. They never really went out. Here's the issue, though, Jason. There are two sides to this story. And if everything that Pete Thamel, who I trust, is true, I don't put a lot of blame on Sluka. This is the game. This is now the system. They've kind of ruined this. My view is, and I tweeted about this about an hour ago, I think it's time for college football and basketball to get away from any false pretense or association with amateurism. We know what the NIL is. It's basically pay for play. Okay, it's not about name, image, or likeness. It's about having a salary cap and paying the roster. Now, with that said, I think the way you need to do this is make these NIL deals binding on both sides. Okay, and you have to be really steadfast in that. Number two, I'd make them multi-year contracts. And I'd also have penalties for transfers, paybacks, certain restrictions. This is now professional football. Let's make it official. I think both sides, the players and the institutions, would be better off for it.
TJ, I know you're friendly with Barry Odom.
Yeah.
Was he one of your coaches at Mizzou?
Yes.
Yeah. And he's the head coach at UNLV. Your thoughts?
So this, just to be clear, is not coming from Barry Odom. I have not spoken. I've reached out, but I have not heard back. but I do know the man. And so I just, based on what I know about him and having, he was my coach for 3 years, I don't believe a word that's coming out of this kid's mouth or his representation or anything else. And by the way, I can't believe you weren't following him at Holy Cross, as we're all pretty big fans of Holy Cross. That's where he transferred from. Look, when you get into he was a graduate transfer. When you get into the transfer portal, your phone number goes out to everyone. He was getting recruited by Baylor, Kansas State, Mississippi State, Utah. He had a bunch of schools. They all got his phone number. Ended up going to UNLV. Maybe the other people weren't quite ready to take him. Don't know. He starts out this year. UNLV is ranked for the first time in their history. My guess is he walks into Barry Odom's office and says, hey, man, this is my last year. I'm not going to the NFL. I'm completing 43% of my passes, and so I need some more money. And I need
43% of my?
43.
Yeah.
He's a running quarterback.
Gotcha.
So, he ran for 125 yards in their upset against Kansas and whatever. Not a great quarterback, right? But he fits certain systems. And he says, I got to make some money now or this isn't going to happen. And he walks in and says, here's what I need, 100,000, 200,000, whatever it is. And Odom's like, hey, man, I don't have a magic wand. And it's like, we got what we got. Let's win some more games, and you can probably get some more NIL deals as we go here. I bet you if we're ranked in the top 10, top 15, some more people are going to hear the name of Matthew Sluka. And so the kid goes back, starts calling these other coaches who may have already been calling him, by the way. They may have come in and said, hey, man, I see you're doing pretty well. You still got time to redshirt this year, just so you know. Put that in the back of your head. And we got a couple $100,000 for you over here at Mississippi State or Utah or Baylor or wherever else. He walks into Odom's office. Odom says, no. He says, I'm redshirting and I'm out. That is the problem with perpetual free agency. So this kid at any time, anybody at any time, you can call it tampering. You can have issues. Anybody can walk out the door. So a lot of what Steve's saying needs to be addressed. This was guaranteed to happen at some point. This system of chaos. Joel Klatt talked about this for a while. This is a failure of epic proportions on the NCAA for not getting ahead of this and putting some guardrails up. It happened because of lawsuits. It's a free-for-all, and now it's a disaster.
TJ.
The only thing you left out, TJ, is I don't think the kid went in and talked to Barry Odom. I think the agent called Barry Odom. I think the agent is the one calling all the other coaches and programs, and the agent is sitting there thinking, hey, if I'm going to make a buck off this kid, and I've been representing him, and perhaps I've funneled him a few $1,000s to help him move and blah, blah, blah. If I'm going to make any money, I have to strike now. This is a grad assistant. He doesn't have 3 years left. He can milk the system for one more year. And so the kid is letting the agent act on his behalf, but I guarantee the agent is driving this. Mm-hmm. The kid's just been focused on playing football and playing at a high level, and the agent's like, we're going to make some money, dude. Trust me, we're going to make some money. And the agent's figured out a way to do it.
But the kid, to be able to turn your back on your teammates, and I get it, you've not been there for 4 years, but you are turning your back on your teammates here. These are guys that you minimally probably did spring ball with, certainly did your training camp with, and now you're 3-0, you're ranked, you should all be celebrating, and you're ready to bail on everyone?
Well, TJ, I would bet that your bonds with your best Mizzou teammates, the ones that actually have impact, that took 2, 3, 4, 5 years to fully form. Those type bonds that you're talking about don't form in 6 months. That I was at Holy Cross for probably 3 or 4 years. He's probably got some real connections there. He's a mercenary, whether he showed up in the spring, summer, and now 3, 4 weeks. He ain't got no real bonds with these guys. These aren't his boys. These won't be the people he's calling
certainly not now.
20, 30 years from now. And here's the other thing that's probably there's probably a bunch of guys in there like they don't blame him. They're not mad at him. They're wishing they were in the same situation. That's how mercenary this whole thing of doing it for good old Mizzou, this whole thing doing it for Ball State. It's one of the reasons why I have my passion for Ball State football is not the same. I was the guy that was trying to be the glue guy for 30, 40 years of Ball State history. Always came to games, always connected with kids every year so that I knew the players that played 15 years after me, players that played 10, 15 years before me, players that played 20, 25 years after me. Now with this mercenary system, I'm like, why would I connect with these kids they'll transfer. They're not as committed to Ball State. They can't even. It's just not like that anymore as it relates to college sports. The schools don't matter, and the connection to the schools don't matter. Steve, your thoughts?
Yeah, Jason, I disagree, though. If you've been at UNLV for your whole college career and you're an upperclassman, trust me, you're invested into that institution and that program. I believe there would be harsh feelings. But let me point this out. This is nothing new. Last year, North Carolina State had a quarterback by the name of M.J. Morris. He did the exact same thing. In fact, he did it after they beat Miami, and it was after the fourth game that he played, and he said, I'm out. And he wasn't exactly Phillip Rivers, and Sluka is not exactly Randall Cunningham. But here's where they went wrong with the NIL. Look at the whole thing. What does NIL mean? Name, image, and likeness. That means if you're an iconic athlete, think Chris Webber at Michigan, Tim Tebow at Florida, Reggie Bush at USC, that you got a percentage of the proceeds of every jersey and a piece of merchandise or paraphernalia that featured your name or picture or image, right? And you can get endorsement deals like the way Caitlin Clark did at Iowa. The problem is, like I said, it's just now pay for play and having a salary cap. And unfortunately, if this really was like the NIL, Matthew Sluka could be like, hi, I'm Matthew Sluka. You want a great $1.99 steak and eggs deal? Come to the Golden Nugget to open 20, but they don't have that. And the reality is about UNLV, and I'm in that city, pretty often because of my boxing ties. They don't even care about their basketball program anymore. Nobody, I mean, not nobody, but hardly anybody really cares about their football program. So I'm not even so sure those opportunities that years ago would have been right up the alley of Larry Johnson and Stacey Augmon and Greg Anthony would exist. But this is another issue that's a dynamic. The smaller schools like a UNLV will always be just a breeding ground for poaching. And let's call it what it is. It is poaching for the bigger programs. Case in point, last year's quarterback that I mentioned is now at USC.
Yeah, I think I said this earlier this week, or maybe I tweeted it out, but what I like as a solution is, you can transfer out of these mid-major schools as long as that school that receives you drops $200K into the Ball State collective, into the Central Michigan collective, the Holy Cross collective. And so, yeah, and again, I love Carson Steele, running back for the Chiefs, played 2 years at Ball State. I would have loved for UCLA, when they came and poached our running back, we were the only school willing to let the kid play running back. Everybody else wanted him to play linebacker. We let him play running back. He reveals himself as a great running back. We invest in him for 2 years. And so if UCLA, hey, you guys want to benefit from our investment, give us $250,000 for our collective. And now we can spend that money on our kids here. And maybe we get 2 kids. We had a tight end that I think went to South Carolina. That's another $200,000. So now I got $450,000, $500,000 to invest on my kids here at Ball State. That's a fair exchange.
Well, Jason, another rule that I would make as Commissioner Kim, you get one transfer. And this whole notion that you should be able to transfer multiple times without ever sitting out a year, back when you guys played, I think is ridiculous. It has caused anarchy.
Well, I certainly think that's true. And I just think, look, there's a reason the NFL does a salary cap. If you're actually going to have the schools paying them out instead of the businesses around the schools or Gatorade or whoever else, Mizzou is benefiting from this right now. Mizzou has a really good NIL program. We've purchased a lot of kids. It's made us right now, we're top, whatever. I think we just moved to 11th in the country. We were up to number 7. Last year we won 11. It's benefiting my group, which was a historically, top 40 program, and the last couple of years has made us top 10 to 15. But I still don't like it. It's destroy. I don't know who's going to be on the field year to year. You walk out and you say, I can give you $700,000. Why don't you come here? And if the kid has a bad year or somebody else offers him more, then he's gone the next year. It is a disaster. And what it doesn't do is the UNLVs of the world, the Ball States of the world, and at some point, maybe the Missouris of the world. We happen to be on the right side of this, but someday we could be on the wrong side because Missouri's not exactly a perpetual blue blood. You have to create something that allows it to be equal. And so, Tennessee's got 10% of their ticket prices now going to their future NIL stuff. That's coming directly from the school. That's going to be a problem, and it's going to get much worse.
Like what you saw? Hit that like button, subscribe, and check out the full episode by clicking the link below.